Maybe you have a few smart devices like lights and plugs and locks in your house, and maybe you've even created a few routines with something like Google or Amazon smart speakers, but you continually run into frustrations because some devices don't want to work with your smart speaker, or the routines don't offer the options to do what you truly want to do. Or maybe you're tired of installing a new app on your phone and creating an account for every new smart device you add, leading to dozens of different apps just to manage your devices. Home Assistant is a free, completely local, and private option that can solve most of these issues. And maybe you've heard of Home Assistant, but also heard that you need to be a geek, a nerd, or a software engineer to use it. But Home Assistant has come a very long way in the past couple of years, and you might be surprised at how simple it is to set up and use today. Hi, and welcome to Resin Chem Tech. This video comes at the request of a subscriber, but do note that this is not going to be a how-to or step-by-step guide for installing or using Home Assistant. If you're looking for that, you've probably already made the decision to use Home Assistant, and there are a lot of good tutorials online here on YouTube and elsewhere, including my own Home Assistant 101 playlist that will help you get started with Home Assistant once you've decided to use it. This video is for those of you that might have heard of Home Assistant but aren't 100% sure that it's the right fit or that you have the skills to install and maintain it. I'll cover what it is, some of the key features, the hardware needed, and yes, a little bit about the skills that you might want to have before using Home Assistant. I'll also cover some of the common misconceptions and concerns based on my personal experience of using Home Assistant for the past 7 years. One note before I get started. What I'm going to show today is current as of spring of 2025. But Home Assistant issues monthly updates, and Home Assistant today looks a lot different than it did a year ago, and a year from now it may look totally different again. But I'll try to leave some resources down in the video description to the most current information available. So why use Home Assistant? To start, Home Assistant isn't tied to or related to any particular manufacturer or vendor group. There are well over 3,000 different officially supported integration types. This includes integrations for many other hubs or devices such as Apple HomeKit, SmartThings, and Habitat. This means if you're currently using another system, you can slowly migrate your devices to Home Assistant while still running your current hubs or devices. And while these are the officially supported integrations and new ones are generally added once a month, you can find thousands more in the community-developed Home Assistant Community Store, which is also known as HACS. Odds are, if you own a smart device, it can probably be integrated into Home Assistant. But even more than being an integration hub for all your devices, Home Assistant probably has the most flexible and powerful automation engine of any system currently available. Have you ever wished you could create an automation that, for example, would turn on some Govee lights in your basement whenever motion is detected via a Hue's motion sensor installed on the stairs? Well, by default, both devices use their own proprietary cloud. This means that Hue devices do not natively speak or communicate with Govee devices, especially since one uses Wi-Fi and the other uses Zigbee. But by using Home Assistant, which has official integration support for both Hue and Govee, you can have them speak to each other and create the desired automation. What's more, these particular integrations operate locally without any cloud or internet access needed. Yes, there are third-party automation options out there like If This Then That can create automations similar to this. But once again, this is cloud-based, which means that first off, all of your automations will be significantly slower. In some cases, this may not matter, but introducing something like a 2 to 3 second delay to a simple operation like turning on a light when motion is detected can be very noticeable and even problematic in some cases. In addition, if you have more than 2 simple automations, which is all you get for free, then IFTTT requires a monthly subscription and even a larger amount if you have more than 20 automations. And of course, these automations will quit working if your internet goes out or you cancel your subscription. As another alternative, and depending upon your devices, you may be able to integrate your devices and create some basic automations with smart speakers like Google Home and Amazon's She Who Shall Not Be Named. Of course, you are limited to the devices and actions that Google or Amazon support, and at least with Google, it seems like more and more features are being removed, breaking previously working automations. Rumor has it that everything is moving to Gemini AI, and who knows how that might impact current devices or automations down the road. But once both devices are integrated together in Home Assistant, creating the automation just takes a couple of simple clicks. In this case, I simply select the device, or entities as they're sometimes called in Home Assistant, from a list. So I can select my Hughes motion detector and say when stair motion is detected. And in this particular case, I've added an optional condition, which means that these steps will only run if these conditions are met. So in this case, I'm saying only take these steps if the basement lights are off. But if they are, then I want to select my Govee light or lights, and I want to turn them on. It's really that easy. And this automation is completely local, meaning that it will be much faster and will continue to work even if the internet is out. And of course, you can create as many automations with as many devices as you like, from simple to very complex, at no cost and with no monthly subscription fees. I should mention that Home Assistant does have a completely local voice option for interacting with your smart devices. It isn't quite a full substitute yet for something like Google or Amazon's devices, but it's rapidly evolving, and installation and setup are getting easier by the month. Now, you can purchase a pre-built version, or you can even build your own DIY version. And you can optionally add an AI agent, cloud or local, to interact with Home Assistant much more naturally than any of the current devices out there. Now you're going for an entire video just on the features of Home Assistant, but let's move on to what you would need to get started should you decide to give Home Assistant a try. Remember, Home Assistant is an open source software platform. This means you'll need to supply a device to act as the Home Assistant server. Now you might be thinking, server, whoa, I'm not a network or systems engineer, I don't deal with servers. Well, server in this case is just a machine that's always on and can be accessed on your local network by multiple clients or other devices, basically any device with a web browser, as this is how you'll normally control and interact with Home Assistant. More on that in just a moment. For the server, it can be just about any machine that can be connected to your network via an Ethernet cable connection. Just laying around, you might have some potential no-cost options that you can start with just to try out Home Assistant. These can include something like an old laptop. Laptops are nice because they have a battery that would serve as a backup to keep Home Assistant running if the power were to go out. But you can also repurpose an old desktop. If you don't have anything like that available, you can still get started for under $200. Now you can use a Raspberry Pi, and this is one of the most common methods for getting started out, and you can use a Raspberry Pi 3, 4, or 5. But don't forget, in addition to the Raspberry Pi itself, you would have to buy a power supply, a micro SD card, and possibly some kind of case. But you can buy starter kits for around $80 to $160 and up, depending on the model of the Raspberry Pi. Another really good option is to use one of the new mini PCs. You can get perfectly adequate systems for running Home Assistant for around $150. You can run the Home Assistant operating system directly on the hardware, or you could do something like install a VM environment like Proxmox, so the machine could also be used to run other apps or VMs. Just as an FYI, this is the current method that I use. I'm running Home Assistant in a Proxmox VM on a mini PC. You don't need a lot of horsepower to run Home Assistant. In fact, the minimum hardware requirements are a 1 GHz processor, 1 gig of RAM, and 16 gigs of storage. Of course, these are just the minimums, and you may need to increase these specs as your automated smart home grows. There is another option if you don't want to mess around with building your own and trying to install Home Assistant onto a device. You can purchase the Home Assistant Green from various sources. At around $100, this is a pre-built device specifically made for Home Assistant and comes with Home Assistant pre-installed. Just plug it in, add it to your network, and you're ready to go. So you have a lot of options, generally under $200 for getting started. Initially, you probably want to try to minimize your spend. That way you can try out Home Assistant to see if it's really for you. You can always upgrade your system down the road as your smart home grows with more devices and automations. Moving from one machine to another, or even moving from one platform to another, is as simple as creating a backup on the old system and restoring it to the new one. Once your server is initially set up, you no longer need to access it directly, so you don't need a keyboard or a monitor or anything else connected to the Home Assistant server, as it can operate what's called headless. This is one point of confusion I see with new users or those considering Home Assistant. There's a belief that you need to connect another computer or at least a keyboard and display to the Home Assistant server, and this is how you configure the system to do things like creating dashboards, adding integrations, or flashing ESP home devices. Now, while you can do it that way, it certainly isn't necessary. Here's my Home Assistant server. After Home Assistant was installed, the mini PC was disconnected from the keyboard and monitor, and I've never had to connect it again. All access to Home Assistant, including adding integrations, creating dashboards, and simply interacting with your smart devices, can all be done from other computers, tablets, or even phones. While it's ideal to have the Home Assistant server connected to your network via hardwired Ethernet, all remote devices can communicate with the Home Assistant server via Wi-Fi as well as over a wired connection. The only requirement is all the devices are on the same network. For most users, this will be the case. While the most common way to configure and control and use Home Assistant is via a web browser, Samba can also be used to map a drive to the Home Assistant folders. This can be handy if you need to copy things like media files. You can also enable access to the command line via SSH. This is primarily for advanced users, and nearly everything you need to do with Home Assistant can be done via the browser. While it might have been true in the past, you no longer need to be a software engineer or a programmer or have advanced technical skills to be able to install and use Home Assistant. The two biggest skills you really need are just the ability to follow some simple written instructions and a willingness to ask questions and maybe learn a thing or two along the way. You can install a program or an app on your computer. That's about all the skill level needed to install Home Assistant. The installation page for Home Assistant provides multiple installation methods from easiest to expert, depending upon your server hardware type and skill level. Each of these methods includes a step-by-step tutorial, including screenshots and video clips. In fact, the official Home Assistant website contains a lot of very useful information when starting out with Home Assistant. But at some point, you are going to have questions about how to accomplish a particular task. This is where that second skill comes into play, the willingness to ask questions or ask for help. There's a large community, including myself, that are happy to try to help out new users with Home Assistant. This includes things like forums, Discord servers, and all the normal social media sites. Unfortunately, there are also sites and individuals that aren't very beginner friendly. If you stumble into one of those Discord servers or forums, don't get discouraged and let them turn you off. Look elsewhere and you'll find sites and individuals that are more than happy to help you out. In fact, I have a blog article specifically on how to ask for help and get the best responses that you can check out after this video or before you post your first question. And finally, what might be the most important skill? The willingness to learn and to have a little bit of patience. Home Assistant will seem overwhelming at the beginning, but after you use it for a little bit, I think you'll be surprised at how intuitive it is and how easy it is to add devices and create automations. While Home Assistant has come a very long way to assist those less technical users, and many features like adding new devices or creating automations can be done via a simple point-and-click interface, there are still some advanced features or things like ESP home configurations that might require writing some basic YAML. But that's certainly not something you need right away, and you can grow your skill set as your Home Assistant grows. And again, there are plenty of us out here that can help you out with your YAML when it becomes necessary. Now, there are a few other important items to consider if you are thinking about using Home Assistant. Each month, a new version of Home Assistant is released. Now, this introduces new features, improvements, and numerous fixes. In addition to the monthly releases, there are normally a handful of mid-month patches that address any bugs discovered since the last release. Each release, unfortunately, also comes with a list of breaking changes, or backward incompatible changes as they're now called. And these are things that might break some part of your system. It might not happen every month, but at some point an upgrade likely will break something in your system. Note that updates will not occur automatically by default. Instead, Home Assistant will notify you whenever an upgrade on your core Home Assistant or other integrations have an update available. So you're in complete control as to if or when to install an update. And updating is also very easy, as you simply click a button and the update will be installed with an option to create a backup of your system first. But nothing says you must upgrade each month. You could install Home Assistant, set it up, and never update it again. The downside to doing this is that you won't be able to get fixes, security updates, or any new features. And if a feature or new device integration is introduced and you want it, and you're multiple releases behind, all those breaking changes are compounded and can make it much more difficult to locate a particular breaking change since multiple versions of the release notes would be involved. Also note that breaking changes are much more likely to impact you and your system as it grows and becomes more advanced. Personally, I update my Home Assistant every month. In terms of breaking changes, and despite the fact that my Home Assistant is 7 years old and probably a little more complex than many, I only run into breaking changes maybe a couple of times a year that directly impact my Home Assistant installation. If there are no breaking changes for me, then the upgrade process takes about 5 to 10 minutes to apply the update and maybe do a little spot checking to make sure everything is working as expected. And since Home Assistant also has a very robust backup system that can create multiple backups in multiple locations automatically or manually, if something does go wrong, in most cases you can simply restore your system from a backup. In general, I'd say I spend about 30 minutes a month on routine maintenance for Home Assistant, unless there are one of those breaking changes that impacts me. While there is a ton of official documentation for Home Assistant, it can be a little hit or miss, sometimes not always up to date or incomplete, as the static documentation isn't always kept current with the latest releases. However, just announced at the annual State of the Open Home, which is Home Assistant's annual conference or presentation, one of the roadmap items for next year is a better, centralized, community-driven information portal for all Home Assistant guides and how-tos. But remember that in the interim, there are a lot of other sources for help, including forums, Discord, YouTube videos, etc. And while these can also become outdated over time, you can usually find a recent source of information with just a little bit of searching. Or again, just ask. While Home Assistant is completely free, and you may start out with an old machine you have laying around, at some point you may want or need to spend just a little bit of money. Over time, you may outgrow your initial system and need to purchase something with a little more horsepower like a mini PC. Personally, I was amazed at the speed and performance difference between the Pi and the mini PC I'm using today, especially when it comes to things like system restarts and loads. Now, you don't need to purchase a high-end system from the start, but when your Home Assistant grows and becomes an integral part of your home, a more powerful and reliable machine may be desired. Of course, there is the cost of the smart devices themselves, like lights and switches and sensors, that you may want to add over time, but you have this cost regardless of the automation platform. And since Home Assistant supports so many different devices, you have much more flexibility when shopping for the best value and the right fit, as opposed to being locked into an overpriced framework where you have to purchase a particular vendor's devices. Yeah, I'm thinking of you, Philips Hue. At some point, you may want to consider a Nabu Casa subscription. Nabu Casa is the hardware and cloud subsidiary of the Open Home Foundation, which also owns Home Assistant. A subscription offers the following primary benefits. First is remote access to your Home Assistant via a privacy-focused private cloud. This means that once your devices are integrated, you no longer need to use all those different remote apps, create all those cloud accounts, and share all of your data just to control those devices when you're away from home. You have one app, the privacy-focused Home Assistant Cloud, that allows you access and control of all your automated devices, and all of your data is encrypted so it can't be viewed or used for other purposes. You also get easy integration of voice assistants like Google Home and Amazon Alexa without the need to create proxies, open ports, etc. As I mentioned earlier, Home Assistant does have an option for a fully local voice assistant, but this is still pretty early in the process and is still a little bit more advanced at this point. You also get, and this is a newer feature, cloud backups. Backup and restore your Home Assistant directly from your backup, safely stored and encrypted in the cloud online. And I want to mention that the ability to manage Home Assistant remotely has another potential benefit. I've heard from a number of folks that have installed Home Assistant in their elderly parents' home for safety and security. They manage all aspects of Home Assistant for their parents remotely. This includes updates, automations, integrating new devices, etc. I do note that it's entirely possible to accomplish all of these tasks without the subscription, but it may take a lot of advanced configuration, opening ports on your router, using proxies, etc. With an Nabu Casa subscription, all this works without any network or router reconfiguration. So hopefully I provided a little bit more information to help you decide if Home Assistant is the right system for you. And I've only scratched the surface of some of the things that Home Assistant is able to accomplish. And today it can do a whole lot without ever writing a single line of code, or YAML in this case. So you don't have to be a software engineer or programmer to install and make full use of Home Assistant. I'll be back soon with more videos on DIY electronics and Home Assistant. But until that time, I'd like to say thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon.